What's up, everybody? This is Mr. Second Passport, and today we're going to look at how international living got it wrong again this year in 2021 with their famous retirement index of the best places to retire that they do each year, and now they just released their 2021 version. They were going to look at what they got wrong. Their number one pick for 2021, right? And this is a big deal if you're not sure. Like, Ecuador was ranked number one in for the first time in 2011 or 2013. And it just put Ecuador on the map. And just literally thousands of expats came to Ecuador because of this ranking. You wouldn't believe it. A lot of people moved here entirely based off this ranking sight unseen, which is pretty crazy. But anyway, their number one pick for 2021 is Costa Rica, which let Jimmy Butler react for me to that. Yeah, that about sums it up. All right, what I think about Costa Rica as number one. I remember living in California in 2005, 6-ish, and Californians were dreaming about moving to and buying second homes in Costa Rica. It's been passed over. It's done. It's Gringolandia. If that's what you're looking for when you move abroad, high prices, a lot of Californians, and I don't know. If that's what you're looking for, then fine, go to Costa Rica for me. Number two, Panama. What? Let me get Jimmy Butler up there again. Come on, man. Come on. Panama, I've been there a few times. Way overrated. Way overrated. It rains a lot, but not like Ecuador or even US rain. It rains like you walk outside one step and you're drenched kind of rain. Too much for me. I love the rain, but that's too much. That's too much for me. It's raining. It's got a lot of traffic in the city. Panama City, what they don't tell you, it has no beach, just mud flats. And Panama City, there's no public transport, so you pretty much need a car. I mean, there's very little, limited, very poor public transport, kind of like the US. So, and definitely not cheap. It's not a cheap Latin country. I would not move to Panama. It might be a little cheaper than the US, but like the reasons they give, okay, visas and for shopping and affordable rents and dollarized, strong and stable economy. Yeah, it's international, I'll give you that, but shopping, really shopping, you can find all those consumer goods like cell phones and clothing way cheaper in the US and Canada compared to Panama. I know I've been to the so-called duty-free zones in Panama and gone shopping myself. It's not that cheap. It's not that cheap. And yeah, Panama, big no for me for what I just mentioned. Mexico. First destination on this top 10 list that actually should be on here due to its proximity to the US, its mild climate, and a lot of climates to choose from, varied terrain, really good food, friendly people. Okay, Mexico should be on here, absolutely. But the big knock on Mexico is the security issue. It's that whole narco kidnapping culture that maybe Hollywood has sensationalized a little bit. But there's definitely places in Mexico where I don't feel entirely safe, like you would in most other Latin countries. Second only that culture to a place like Colombia. Now, I have lived in Medellin and Bogota and several different places in Colombia, for like a long time, like over a year at a time. And it's an amazing place, but can we keep it 100? Let's just keep it real on this channel. I hope I don't offend anyone, but if I do, so sorry. Colombia is great for single men. Okay, it's great for single men. I'll definitely give it that. But if the typical expat couple or the single female, I'm not so sure. Because, well, Colombia has this culture where, it's kind of a city oriented life. So there's not much to do outside the cities. And, there's still kind of an armed conflict problem. Like, sure, the FARC has signed the peace agreement and said they won't exist anymore or whatever, but all those, I've talked to Colombian policemen recently in 2020, entering 2021, and they've said all those guys just kept doing the same thing in the same places. They just no longer called the FARC. Now they're just dedicated straight on to the whole drug trade thing, like they were before, but now they're just not named FARC. So I mean, there's a lot of places in rural Colombia that you cannot really go or visit. So you feel kind of confined to the city, right? And after a while, that confinement kind of feels like being trapped. At least it did for me. I didn't really like it. I mean, and the reasons they give for Colombia, really, there's a great airport with connecting routes all over the world. Are you kidding me? What country doesn't have that? You know what I mean? All right. Come on. Portugal, number 5. I'm going to say a big no to this one, too. I don't know what the big deal is with Portugal all of a sudden. It's just one of these places that they're pumping. Portugal, okay, what they don't say about Portugal, if you're making a pension in dollars, that dollar is crashing as we speak. It's crashed over 10% in the last year, entering 2021. And every time you take money out, every single time you get raped, from the ATM when you're living in a Euro country. I know because I've lived in Spain, I've spent time over there. I know what I'm talking about. And that's one thing. So Portugal, it might be a little bit cheaper than North America, but it's definitely not cheap, right? And they still have winters. I've been in northern Portugal. It is overcast and dreary. That, I don't know, those jet streams off the northern Atlantic just hit it dead on. And it might be a little bit more mild than, say, the Midwest of the U.S., but it's still got winters. The food, I've spent several weeks in Portugal before, and it's I can't remember a single meal I ate there of significance. I don't know. I just don't see it with Portugal. Great place to visit, amazing culture. Also, the language is really hard, so you're gonna have to be searching, for someone that speaks English in the streets if you want something. Is that really how you want to live year after year after year? To visit, sure, you can deal with it, but I don't know about living. Portuguese sounds to me more like Russian. It's really harsh and difficult, and it's really fast. Brazilian Portuguese, totally different. Very easy. They have this nice flow, this nice rhythm, slow rhythm to their speak, kind of like Latin American Spanish, and it's, for me, it's just way easier. But Portuguese, forget about it. Ecuador, of course, good choice. I do think it should be top 10 in the world, definitely. But for the reasons that they give, no, I don't like it. Don't like it at all. They always talk about the cost of living when they talk about how low it is in Ecuador. And cheap healthcare. First off, the cost of living. What this does is it brings waves of these economic refugees to Ecuador, people who couldn't make it in the U.S., economically, so they have to move somewhere else in order to retire. And what they do is they move here and then they just bitch and complain all the time. And all of us are just thinking one thing: if you don't like it, go back. Just go back. Nobody asked you to come. No, has everything that they've mentioned in those other countries and a lot more. Varied terrain, great climate, really good food, but you gotta know where to eat, just like everywhere. And I don't like when people say Ecuador food's bland, because it's not true. You just gotta know where to eat. It has some really amazing food, really good seafood on the coast, things like that. Ceviche, gotta try that. The cons: political stability. Have they even done their research? The same political party has been in power here for over 15 years, and they've had a peaceful transfer of power in the meantime. During those 15 years, they do have an election coming this year in 2021, but I don't see it being too eventful. I'll tell you where it's more stable than probably the US right now. Right? Malaysia in the top 10? Nah. Nah. I've been to Malaysia. It is the most bland by far of all the Southeast Asian countries combined. It's just so bland. They've tried, they're so bent on being developed that they've just made the whole thing so bland. I've lived in KL, Kuala Lumpur, a short time, a little over a month one time, and let me tell you, bland, bland, bland. And another thing, they say how there's a nice melting pot of cultures. You're really stretching it here because, there's the Malays, which are like the indigenous. There's the Chinese and the Indians. They don't mix. It's a very segregated society, and I don't really like that. They peacefully coexist, but I definitely don't think they like each other. That was just my opinion. It's nice to visit, but to live, I would choose the best part of Malaysia, which is not even in Malaysia. It's Singapore. Singapore is such a cool city, but it's so expensive. It's one of the priciest cities in the world. So, and also when you go out to the countryside in Malaysia, it just depresses you. And when you drive long distances in Malaysia, it depresses you because they've cut down every single tree of their forests to plant these palm plantations, palm oil plantations. And that's all you see for acres and acres and acres. Not a fan. Not a fan at all. What they say is the low cost of living again. Ugh. Just like Ecuador, if that's the only reason you're moving abroad, there's much cheaper places than Malaysia and Ecuador. All right? Like in Malaysia is probably the most expensive place in all of Southeast Asia. Why would you move to Malaysia if you're looking for low cost of living? Ecuador is cheap, sure, but I have friends that moved to Georgia, the country, from Ecuador. They say it's 2 to 3 times even more cheap than Ecuador. So, there's way cheaper in Central Asia. There's way cheaper places to live in the world if that's the main thing you're looking for. France? Man, what are these guys thinking? France? Yeah, they chose it because it's the most visited place in the world. Yeah, I'll give France that. Nice place to visit. I was impressed with Paris just to visit, but to live? Newsflash, they have winters just like the US. It's not cheap to live in France. The language is difficult for most of us. French, the way they speak it, tough. Going to be searching for people that speak English. And let me tell you something, when you search for people that speak English in France, the French people are not that nice. I've been there. That's my opinion. The stereotype is not so much a stereotype. Malta? Let's get Jimmy on there again. No. Malta, another amazing place to visit. Very unique, interesting, so much culture in a little place. But I've lived on an island before. The deal breaker for me, I've lived in Oahu, Hawaii, and I was dating locals and had a lot of local friends. All of them, everyone I met that I was close to, wanted to get the hell out of Hawaii, that were from Hawaii. They even joked about taking a car and driving it straight onto the beach, right into the ocean, and try to get the hell out of Hawaii. And it was kind of off-putting for someone like me who just got there and loved Hawaii because, that first year, everything's different and cool and beautiful. But that wears off really quick when you're on an island. Like you go on a road trip, and you have to keep making right turn, right turn, right turn. You can't even go straight for very long just because of the size of the island. I'm not a big fan of that. Just not a big fan of island living. That island fever is real, and it could probably hit someone as long as you go in knowing that. Usually after about a year or 2. Number 10 on the top 10 list to retire, Vietnam. And I have to ask them, are you insane? Are you crazy? Come on, man. Come on, man. Vietnam, I've been there. Okay, I've tried kite surfing for the first time in Muay Thai. I've hung out, spent a lot of time actually in Hanoi, in Ho Chi Minh City, the Ho Chi Minh City. Saigon. But let me tell you something about it. Hanoi is cold as shit in the winter, in the winter months. You don't realize that, but it gets cold, man, in northern Vietnam, in the winter. And they don't have heat in their homes. It's one of those places, man, they don't have heat, but it gets cold in those months. At least it was for me. Ho Chi Minh City, hot, 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 humid. No, and you can't even walk very well either through the city because there's so many motorbikes, right? It's really hard to get the hang of just picking a line and walking and knowing that everyone's going to mesh to you. Well, what if one guy doesn't mesh to me? That's always going through your head. And then if you start freaking out and pausing, that's when you really get hit by the motorbikes. So the motorbikes for me is a deal killer, I hate to say, and so is, the lack of being able to have a car if I ever wanted one. Besides the fact it's a communist country, so a lot of business opportunity, maybe owning land, is off the table for most of us Westerners and foreigners from Vietnam. And another deal killer for me, if we're keeping it 100 again, just keeping it real, you know, Vietnam is one of those few places in the world that I don't think I could live in because visit, sure, amazing exotic place, amazing food, super different, but to live, the deal killer for me would be it's for decades now, maybe since the war, but it's kind of been a sex tourist destination, right? So as a white male, um, young or even older, you're kind of looked at differently by the locals, and I don't really like that. And say you go out to a bar, and say you are single and you want to meet people, all you see is a bar full of hookers. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that at all.